Okay, I would like to just reiterate and echo the sentiments that I shared on within the Slack channel the other day that I messaged everyone. And those sentiments were simply a reminder that you should be working on the replets. So I once again just went and checked the replets, and yeah, we have 8 students. When I say students, participants who are currently, for the most part, up to date on the replets. And 2 of those are my children. And from the other 6, um, I see there's 6 other people who are doing the replets. And mind you, this isn't for a grade. You don't do the replets, congratulations to you. You do them, congratulations to you. But please allow me to encourage you. It's really a complete waste of your time to come here unless you just like watching me talk. In which case, feel free. You're welcome. But it's a waste of your time to participate not only in this, but probably in anything. Like imagine if you were to have an opportunity and to join the basketball team or the soccer team. You're like, yes, I want to go. I'm going to go to the soccer practice. And then you just sit there on the bench the entire time and you say, I don't want to kick the ball. I just want to watch. People would wonder if we're insane, right? So if you truly are here because you want to learn and you want to be able to grow and be better, in this case learn programming, you have to kick the ball. Otherwise there's very little value in you being here. So I just want to give you that speech, whether it's motivation or otherwise. There's little value of you watching someone kick the ball over and over. Trust me, I watch football all of the time. I'm a crazy football fan. I'm from New Orleans, so I'm a Saints fan. But just I can guarantee you that my watching of football in no way translates to my success as an NFL quarterback. Otherwise, I'd probably be making millions as an NFL quarterback because I watch plenty. And if it was that simple to watch and be good at it, we'd all be good at it. You have to do. And if you don't do, there's really little purpose here, unless, again, you just enjoy watching me talk, which is kind of strange. But allow me to encourage you, please, to, if you're here and you really want to learn programming, learn Python, you really need to do those replets. They're set up to help you succeed. Can I get a show of hands within the participant window, please, for anyone who made serious headway, meaning they made an effort at starting the actual programming assignment that was posted within Slack, and if you made any serious headway on it, and keep your hand up so I can actually see. So for clarity, in Slack, there's this programming channel, programming assignment channel, and I posted an actual assignment. This was the first assignment that I gave this semester to my, is my screen sharing? Can someone confirm for me? Anyone feel free. Can y'all see my screen? You should be able to. I want to
Yeah, we
confirm.
can.
Yeah.
Thank you. So this assignment it's not a hard assignment by any stretch of the imagination. It's just the first assignment. If you want to know what a first, programming assignment is or how it feels at a college level, it's not hard. That's why I love this type of material, because I can teach it to 11-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds. There's no prerequisite knowledge. So I had my daughter work on this assignment, I believe it was yesterday, and she spent around 2-3 hours and succeeded at most of it. And well, at all of it, she succeeded at that. She did, and she probably has about 10% left. So if any of you were interested in seeing this first assignment that I had given to the college students, here it is. And it's not hard. It probably takes 2-3 hours, but the value is when you're done. It's your first assignment beyond the replets, and it feels kind of cool that, hey, I did a programming assignment. It's probably a couple hundred lines, maybe 300 lines of code by the time you're done. But there's no hard code here, because all we've learned how to do is what? We know how to read input from the user, which is in blue, and then we know how to perform calculations on that input, right? We have not studied yet how to, make decisions, if and else's, which we're starting today. We haven't studied anything about Boolean logic. We haven't done loops. We haven't done functions. There's so much we haven't done. So there's limited amount of material by which, you can really practice with. But nevertheless, this is a first meaningful assignment, which is really just reading information from the user and then processing that data and displaying something. So I would encourage you, if you want to actually do that, there's no way for you to submit it or test it, but you'll know if it works because you'll come up with the same results, the same output. So I would encourage you all to do that as well. So let's jump into the material for today. So we are at Module 4. Module 4 is finally, we get to something I think is finally the first meaningful thing, or really meaningful thing within this boot camp, and that is decision structures and the idea of if else. So as normal, I encourage you all to make a Module 4 notes. So Module 4 notes. Got about 10 minutes of discussion before I can turn it over to you to start a problem. So I want to introduce this module by talking about, an idea or a motivating example. So we've previously seen this example of area of a circle, right? Where we simply ask the user to enter a radius. We then get that radius. We, as a second step, we perform the calculation, which is the area pi r squared, and then we display the result. And this was code that we had previously. Okay, not very complicated, pretty straightforward. We even have our constant pi. Do remember, can someone remind me about constants in Python? Anything that you remember about constants in Python? I'm curious what you may recall from a previous discussion. Anyone?
They don't actually work in Python, but they work in other programming languages.
I accept that. Anyone else? And I accept that, and I'll translate. When she said doesn't work, like other languages actually have constants built into the language. Python has no such thing. This constant, as you see here, pi, it's a variable. You can change it on line 2 or line 3. I could say pi equals 5. Of course, that would not make sense, but you could do that. Other languages, when you make a variable and you define it as a constant according to the criteria of that language, you cannot change it later on in the code. Python, there is no such thing as constants. You can change the content of any variable. However, we do still stick with the traditional paradigm where we will have constants in our code, and the style guidelines almost in every language for constants is to make the letters of the variable name capitalized. So here, because pi is capitalized, that's just a signal to the programmer or to the reader, whoever's viewing the code, that 3.14159 is a constant intended to not be changed throughout the duration of the program. So this was our program, pretty straightforward. So here is something for your consideration. What if the user enters a negative value for radius? If the user enters a negative value for radius, are we going to have a correct result? Let's say they entered negative 10. The area, we would get negative 10 times a negative 10, which is a positive 100 times 3.14. So we'd have 314 as the area of a circle with a negative radius. And of course, there is no circle with a negative radius. So clearly that's wrong, and we would want to avoid this. How can we avoid that? We can avoid this with the use of what are called selection statements. Officially, the term is selection statements. What is a selection statement? Okay, selection statements, what are they? It's this idea of using if and else. So here, we calculate the area, and then we say, hey, if the radius is less than 0, we can print incorrect input value for radius was given. That was bad English. I should have said incorrect input value for radius must be positive or greater or equal to 0. But otherwise, just the key important component here, else, if the radius is not less than 0, so instead of being less than 0, so if the radius is 0 or greater, then else we can say the area for the circle of radius is area, and we can make a print statement. Gosh, as I look at this, there's some errors on this code. So that's fantastic. You know what? Uh-oh, not stop share. Let me go back to share. Share, I meant to stop here, let's fix this. This is a colon and incorrect input radius must be, here, let's do this. Input radius must be greater or equal to 0. Good enough. That's the idea, okay? So first thing I want to introduce on the next page is this operator. You already know the less than operator from mathematics. That is nothing new, okay? So let's introduce all of them and show how they are in code. So from mathematics, I think all of you know this, less than, okay? Same as the mathematics symbol. So here, if radius was equal to 5, if we were to state radius is less than 0, the result of that is false, right? So assume if I were to say radius is 5, okay? Radius is 5. If I say 5 less than 0, is that a true or a false statement? It's obviously false because 5 is not less than 0, okay? Here in mathematics, I think everyone knows that is the less than or equal to. Now, we don't have a way of coding it just like that on our keyboard. Instead, in all programming languages, it's like this. You put a less than symbol, then you put the equal sign immediately after to the right of that less than symbol with no space in between. That is less than or equal to. Again, so if the radius is 5, if I say radius less than or equal to 5, the result will be false. And similarly, we have a greater than and we have a greater or equal to, okay? And then finally, this symbol in mathematics, that's our equal sign in mathematics, right? That's how we state two things are equal. Can someone remind me what is that within Python or within any programming language? What is that?
Assignment operator.
That's the assignment operator, right? And how does the assignment operator work? If I say x equals 5, and I'm even using the word equals, but we know that it's not actually equals. What does this do? We start, when we see this, which is the assignment operator in Python, when we see that right there, where should our eyes look? To the left or to the right?
Right.
We look to the right. Thank you, Mariam. We look to the right and we see the 5, or what if I said x equals 5 plus, y? Whatever it is, we look to the right, we evaluate it. So we take whatever's over here on the right, and then we assign it into the value on the left, into x, into the variable on the left. This is the idea of our assignment operator. So in math, that's an equal sign, but in Python, that's an assignment operator. However, the math equals, which is this just one equal sign, how do we get that same meaning in Python? We use two equal signs. So for clarity, let me hit stop on this, hit escape, and let's do some of this in Thani. So let us check out some of our comparison operators in Python. So let's just print some stuff, and y'all should type this as well. I'll make this a little bigger. So print, how about I print 5 equal 5? What do you think that's going to print? 5 equal 5. What do you think that prints? Take a guess, anyone?
True.
Absolutely. Now, if you didn't know true or false, you might say correct. It would print correct. Or you might say it'll print yes, but it'll print true. Versus, what if I say print, you know what, just to make this easy, I'm going to make it clear for when we print all this, I'm going to put this in a string first. Then I'll put a space, and then I'll do that. Does that work? Let me see. It's kind of ugly, but yeah, that works. So here, so how about I say 5 equal 7? That's going to print false. Okay. What about if I want to print 5 is greater than 5? Again, I'm just printing the string value first, and then I'm printing the result afterwards. So now here I'm going to put 5 is greater than 5. Is 5 greater than 5? What do we expect that to print, true or false? Quick, these are easy questions. Anyone, jump in.
False.
Absolutely. 5 greater than 5 is obviously a false statement. So it's going to print false. Okay. What about if I want to print, how about I want to print 5 is less than 10? So I'm going to put here Again, for clarity, in case anyone's confused, y'all remember that commas, we're simply separating our output. So our print statement, I'm printing two things. I'm printing what's in this string, and then after I have a comma, and then after this, I'm printing the result of evaluating this statement, okay? So 5 less than 10, is that a true or a false statement, Mariam?
True.
Mariam, 5 less than 10, I can't hear you?
True.
Absolutely. So that should print true, okay? So here, what this is right here, now you see comparison operators, but what all of those things really are, they're called Boolean expressions. What are Boolean expressions? Okay. So what are Boolean expressions? They are any expression, mathematical expression, you could say, that evaluates to either true or false. Okay. So these are all right here in orange. These are all Boolean expressions because they're going to be either true or false. Okay. So if I were just to print, how about we do a couple more examples? What if I were to print, again, 10 equals 12? Someone quick, true or false?
False.
Absolutely. And let's get different people. So now no Charles, no Mariam, no Ibrahim, someone else. These are easy questions. 7 is greater than 8, true or false?
False.
False.
Thank you. Okay, these are easy things. 0 is less than a -4.
False.
False.
People had to think for a second. Is 0 smaller than -4? It's not. That's a false statement. Okay, so here we have true and false statements. We're using these operators, these comparison operators within Python. So we've seen, so remember, what does the equal do? It's worth typing. So how do you check for equality in Python or any other language, probably for the most part, or most other languages? You use two equal signs next to each other with no spaces between them, okay? As we've seen above. So print, I'll just copy this line above. Print 5 equal 5, that's checking for equality, okay? If I put one equal sign, that's trying to assign the right value into the right value, which doesn't even make sense because the right value is not a variable. So make sure you understand equality. Also, how do you check for not equals in Python and other languages as well? You use an exclamation point followed by an equal sign. No spaces between them. Okay, so I could say, how about if I say 5 does not equal 5? That's what this means. 5 does not equal 5. Is that a true or a false statement? Five does not equal 5. Is that a true or a false statement?
False.
That's obviously a false statement. 5 is 5. What if I say 5 does not equal 7? That is a true statement. Okay. So here, 5 does not equal 5. That's obviously false. 5 does not equal 7. That's a true statement. So that's just your introduction to your comparison operators that we're going to be using throughout the remainder of this bootcamp. So very clear on the next page, a reminder of what is the comparison operator. The comparison operator has the two equal signs. So it's a reminder that that's two equal signs versus a single equal sign is our assignment operator. And the result of this comparison is a Boolean value. What's a Boolean value? This is maybe a new term for all of us. A Boolean value is a value that is true or false, okay? So if I were to say radius equals 1 and then I print radius greater than 0, that's going to print a true or a false. That's going to print a Boolean value which is true or false. In this case, it would print true. And again, a Boolean expression is an expression that will evaluate to true or false. And we can have variables. We can have variables that store Boolean values, true or false. Once we get later on, if you learned about object-oriented programming, we can have a variable called lights on equals true. Maybe it's an object for a lamp. Light on equals true. So we can save the value true into a variable. I don't want to talk about that. So this is important, and all of this is going to be used in the upcoming example. So how do we generate random numbers in Python? It's actually pretty easy, and it's actually much easier than other languages. So this is a next important topic. So generating random numbers. First thing you need to do is we need to type import random at the top. Similar to how we typed import math before, import random needs to go at the top of your code on line 1, okay? Just like we did import math, we can type that as well, import math. You can type import time, that's something else we'll use later. You can import a variety of things. We need to import random, which is a library, which allows us to then generate random numbers. So now, generate random numbers. So step 1, type import random on line 1 of your program. Okay, and now we can do the following. I can say, how about random number 1? I'll just call it X. I'm not going to be creative right now. X equals random.rand int 1, 100. I'll put a step 2. Step 2, use random to make random numbers. So generate a random number between 1 and 100 inclusive, which makes it easier than other languages. Other languages, this may have only been 1 to 99, but in Python, it's just whatever numbers you have here in the range. This is going to generate a random number between 1 and 100. So now when I print X, okay, again, let's practice our formatted printing. X dot format X. So when I print X, we'll get a random number. So check this out, X is 31. I run the code again, X is 45. I run the code again, X is 23, 38, 82. I'm running it over and over. It's generating a random number between 1 and 100. And it's worth noting over 10 seconds that this is not truly random. In fact, there are probably, for the most part, no truly random number generators. They're called pseudo-random, pseudo meaning false, because it's not truly random. In the end, it's an algorithm that is used, a recipe, a recipe with some mathematical operations that somehow takes your range of numbers and does a lot of stuff mathematically and ultimately spits out some number between those two numbers. But it's not truly random because we can always guarantee the same set of numbers by using a starting seed. That doesn't make any sense at the moment, but it will later when we do that. But for all intents and purposes at the moment, we are generating a random number between 1 and 100. Let's copy those 2 lines of code, those 3 lines with the comment. Generate a random number between, how about 20 and 40. So I'm going to type 20 here. And I'm going to put 40 here. And let's call this Y. Okay. And there's a random number between 20 and 40. It'll never be anything greater than 40 or anything less than 20. Okay, that's generating random numbers. It's pretty straightforward. And yeah, that's easy. It's much easier to explain this in Python than in other languages. So what I'd like you to do This is going to be a test for you. I do not want you to use if or else. We have not done that yet. Okay? I do not, let me repeat, I do not want you to use if or else. We have not done that yet. All I want you to do is you're going to write a program that's going to randomly generate two numbers between 1 and 9, not greater than 9. And then you're going to ask the user to answer the question of what is this first number plus the second number. You're going to scan their answer like you know how to scan using input, save it into a variable, and then you're just going to print out whether or not it is true or false. So you're literally going to print the word true or the word false. It's not going to look very pretty. We're going to improve upon this example over the next week. But this is a very simple exercise, which I'm not going to actually turn over to all of you just yet. I'm going to have someone in here come guide me through this, and y'all can just watch. I'm going to call this math learning tool, and we'll save a splitting into group for the second one. So here, file, new. So I'm going to call this save into our Bootcamp module 4, and I encourage you to do the same because we're going to have many math tools. So math learning tool, I should put hyphen underscores, math learning tool underscore version 1. This is the most simplistic learning tool. So someone tell me if I want to import, I'm tired. I just said if I want to import. I want to say if I want to use random numbers, what do I need to do? And I said import. Okay, so I'll give the comment. Import random. So import random. Fantastic, that was a great comment. So here, we need to generate two random numbers between 1 and 9. Ask user to answer a math question, the addition of those two numbers, and then print true or false to tell them if they got it correct. Someone give me the code on line 5. How do I generate a random number and save it into a variable? Anyone? Okay, Ibrahim, give it to me.
Num equals random.randint open parenthesis 1, 9.
That's it. And if you allow me, I'm going to call it num1. How about someone else get really, really creative, sarcasm intended, and tell me what comes on the next line for the second random number. Quick, anyone? How do I generate a second random number between 1 and 9? This is intended as an easy question.
Num2, same line.
Absolutely, we're all awake. That's great. Num2, same line, equals random.randint, 1, 9. So now I want to, I'll print, please answer the following question. Okay, so I want to use formatted printing to ask, to state basically, I'll put here as a comment. So if num1 was 8 and num2 was 9, ask the user the following. 8 plus 9 equals, and then leave the cursor right there. Okay, so tell me the line of code right here, the exact line of code using formatted printing. What do I put in here to make that happen? Anyone? I am pausing. My Mariam, where are you?
Wouldn't it be close brackets and then
Keep going, Charles. Was that Charles? Who was speaking just now?
Oh, I was muted. Sorry. It's a pair of closed brackets, and then it would be a plus, and then it would be another closed brackets, and then equals.
A pair of closed brackets, a plus, another pair of closed brackets, and equals, and then what? Walk me through it.
Close the string.
Yep.
And then you would do dot format.
Yep.
And then you would put num1 and num2 in there.
Num1 and num2. And is this Charles speaking?
Yes.
And Charles, how do I stay in that same line now? You know that? Because right now, if I just did that and I run this, check it out. It's gonna, well, we haven't scanned it yet, but it's gonna be waiting for the answer on the next line. So how do I stay?
Input?
Yeah, so we need to do input. So how do I scan the variable now, or the answer? So here we're printing the question. How do I scan the actual answer and save it into a variable on line 13?
You would.
Just answer equals using input.
Integer input.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So if I want to do it that way, pardon me, if I want to do it that way right here, notice it's waiting for the answer on the next line. So how do I get my answer on the same line? What do I need to type on this line 12? Anyone remember? If you remember, don't hesitate. Tell me.
Is it /n?
Very good thought, Leighton, because /n has to do with going to the next line. /n will actually give you an extra new line, in which that's not what we want, but the fact you remember that is great. /n is how we actually go to the next line.
Something end?
Yep, something end. It was, you put comma end equals like this. What that does is it says don't go to the next line. And for clarity, so watch, when I run this, the cursor stays right there, and we can enter 11. But for clarity of how that works, we showed this to you over a week ago. I didn't expect you to remember. If I were to type right now, Python, end equals Python, what it does is it literally just puts whatever's inside those parentheses at the end of that line, and then it leaves the cursor there, which is kind of weird, but that's what it does. So if I were to say end equals, www.google.com, right? It's just going to print that at the end of the line. Similarly, if I were to put nothing inside the end, it just puts nothing at the end of the line, but it leaves the cursor right there. Okay. So usually if you want to stay on the same line, as your print statement to get the user input, normally you would put the print statement within the input right here. We would just say, 7 plus, 4 equals, and it would automatically stay on that same line, right? But since we're using formatted printing, it just looks, it's a little bit easier, I think, to do this on one line, the print statement, and then put the input statement on the next line, but don't put anything inside the input statement. Again, the consequence of that is if you do not use this comma end equals colon, it'll just ask for the input on the next line, which is kind of weird, as you see here. So instead, the solution is you put your comma space end equals colon double quotation, a set of double quotation marks, and then when you run this, we get 3 plus 6 equals, and we can enter our answer. So now that we've saved our answer, it says then print true or false to tell them if they got it correct. So what can I do here? How do I print true or false right now? I need to have a Boolean expression. Someone give me, within a Boolean expression, just give me what goes inside that print statement that will result in a true or a false based on their given answer.
num1 plus num2 equals answer.
Perfect. Awesome job, Rebecca. num1 plus num2 equal answer. Because we're taking num1 and num2, which was the generated numbers above. We're using equal equal to check for equality. And we're saying, does it equal their answer? And so here, 8 plus 1, I put 9, and we say true. Now, that's not the most enlightening response. We'd like to rather tell them, great job, that's correct, or bad job, go back to school. I mean, 8 plus 1, we should know that one, we hope, right? So here, 1 plus 1, if I say 3, it'll say false. So tell me something in the participant window. Give me a thumbs up if you fully understand this right now. If this is clear, what we just did, how we printed true or false using the two equal signs. Fantastic. Okay, let me put this over here. Cool. So come back to our slides and let me jump ahead. Cool, that's easy. If else. So I see we have 2 minutes left. So what I'll just very briefly introduce, and then I'm going to come back and give you the problem. I said I would do it in 10 minutes and it didn't happen. I'm trying to rush through this. There's a lot of material to cover. Here, important, pardon me. So what comes next is the idea of if statements, else statements, multiple nested sets of if and else statements, and we're going to cover all of that this week. So all we did just now is we introduced Boolean expressions, we introduced Boolean comparison operators, and Boolean values and variables, true or false. That becomes now valuable when we can use those things inside if statements to determine, should I go this way or should I go this way? Going back to that radius example, that becomes valuable when we can say, is the radius less than 0? If so, let's print incorrect input, radius has to be greater than 0. If the radius is greater or equal to 0, let's then print, okay, here's the area because you gave us a valid radius. So that's when using if and these else statements, that's when the value comes in of being able to leverage Boolean expressions and help us have more meaningful programs. I see that we're out of time for the session, so I'm going to go ahead and hit stop so we can end a little bit more gracefully than normal, and I'll post the link for the new session in Slack.